everyone, Josh here with Texas Games, bringing y'all another Awaken Chaos Era video, and today we're going to be doing another installment in our little series here of who is better. It's been a couple weeks since our last video, and the reason for that is I didn't get very many suggestions in that video, so definitely go down to the comment section whenever you feel the need to, if you'd like to, that is, and give me a couple suggestions of what units you would like to see featured in this type of series. Now, this is not just a straight, okay, who does more damage. This is more so along the fact of, you know, who's going to be better overall for you. We're going to kind of deep dive into some of the things that these characters can do and benefit your team, and some of the content that they can clear for you in the most efficient ways. So today we're going to be doing Rickard and Rogge. And of course, when you do your suggestions, please make sure they're from the same element and fit similar roles on your team. It just makes it a bit more easier to discuss going forward. So with that said, let's go into our index here and let's pull them up. We're going to try and go through these pretty quickly because a lot of you are probably familiar, at least with Rickard by now. Maybe not so much Rogge, especially considering his descriptions are a bit off. So we're going to go into all that. We're going to try and get through it in a timely manner. So first, let's go ahead and get into Rickard. What does Rickard do? Rickard is a DPS tank, but he's not a traditional DPS. He's not going to be relying on his attack, crit damage, crit rate, or even precision. He's going to be relying on his ultimate, which provides true damage, which you guys and gals can see here. He does 80% of his character's max health to all enemies, which means that this can be a single target attack or an AoE. The one thing though that you need to know when you are hitting multiple targets, it says total true damage. And that word total is very important, because what that means is he's not doing the maximum of 80% of his max HP to individual enemies. That is being divided equally amongst however many enemies there are. So if there's 4 enemies, he's doing about 20% to each one. So you got to keep that in mind. Now, if you hit just a single enemy, they're getting the full 80%. So that's just something that you want to definitely pay attention to, especially when we talk about our second unit. Okay, so he has a base grade of A for health and defense, which is fantastic. So obviously he's going to have more HP and defense than our boy Rogge when it comes to max glyphs. So that is something to also take into account, but that does not mean that he's going to be better by default. So let's continue. His trait is fantastic because it grants 10% damage reduction upon taking damage, maximum 3 stacks. So that's 30% damage reduction, which of course is going to be very well because it'll pair up very good when you do deflections as well. So you're getting the deflections plus the additional damage reduction from the trait. That is super good. And then it also works against crits as well, because it's just all total damage. I believe true damage still goes all the way through though, because I don't think true damage can be decreased in any way. Not to my understanding, but I might be wrong. If somebody's done more testing on that, let me know in the comment section below, because that's very useful information. But I don't think that's the case. I think true damage is the one type of damage that just goes through no matter what, but I could be wrong, as I said. Skill 1 has an attack down, 80% chance to apply that, which is very, very good. Just a little bit of focus on him and you're off to the races. Attack down is a very underrated debuff in my opinion. It can be very helpful, especially when you're taking on you know, boss stages like gear dungeons, for example. He's going to be very good in Tide. You can even run this guy in Tulpa. I've seen some Tulpa teams run him. Very, very cool. You know, the Agulus, you know, the current winter festival event that we have going on right now, things like that, very, very helpful. Guild Boss is another one. All right, skill 2, he does a massive heal, like massive. Restores 30% of his max health. You know, you're gonna be pairing both these units up with a Hackrin, because Hackrin of course is giving you that additional 75% max HP with his 5 stacks, which is, you know, nearly doubling your HP, of course. So that's crazy. So these HP recoveries on their skill 2s are going to be massive because they both have that. Now, Rickard's is a 3-turn cooldown, which is a pretty decent cooldown for what you're getting out of it. It's also giving him a cleanse because it removes all negative effects. I believe if he's CC'd, obviously, that's not going to be very helpful. Like if he's taunted or frozen, he's not, of course, going to cleanse that because you can't actually activate the skill. But things like being ignited or poisoned, etc., he can remove those. He can remove defense downs, attack downs, stuff like that. So that is very, very strong. He's getting a lot in that. Obviously, the damage modifiers are completely irrelevant for all of these characters because We're not building them to be DPSs because their attack stats are so low. Okay, now his ultimate, again, we've already mentioned, that is what really makes him tick. But there's one thing I want to mention with his ultimate really quickly. It is a very long cooldown. It is a 6-turn cooldown. And unfortunately, there's nothing else in his kit that allows him to really do much of any kind of damage outside of that. So he becomes somewhat of a statue for a few turns, unless you run him with like a Windstrex and reset his ult and then spam that ultimate with a hacker, and that could be a lot of fun. That could be something that you could do. But outside of that, you kind of just have to sit there and wait for the ultimate to kind of, you know, reset, and in between that, he's just going to be a statue out there, not really providing much for your team except for just being a big body that doesn't die until he can, of course, pop his ultimate. Now, I guess you could say the attack down, he could spam that perhaps, and that could be very helpful in the meantime. But yeah, he's going to be pretty much just a big body out there during that. But that does not mean he's bad. That just means that he's going to be built for more of a burst instead of like the long term, like our other unit we're getting ready to discuss here, which is Rogue. Because what you can do is you could run him like in Tide, for example, with a unit like Santis, and go in there and just pop his ultimate, and then you got Santis that's going to sit there and just keep milking with the poisons, and then 6 turn goes by, boom, he's going to pop another ult, and then hopefully by then you have the boss dead, because his ultimate will do a ton of damage, especially to single targets. You're talking 25-30k plus in one hit. That is huge. Okay, and he's only an epic hero and he's a tank, so that's kind of crazy numbers that you're pulling there. But let's go to talk about Rogue now. Rogue, of course, as we said, is going to have lower health and defense because he's got a B grade instead of A, unlike our boy Rickard. But that doesn't mean necessarily that he's going to be losing in the DPS battle. So there's something here that we need to discuss that's not mentioned, and hopefully they start addressing this before the global launch, because it's becoming a bit of a nightmare when you're trying to test units. The description is not telling you the full story. There's a lot of information missing from this. So it says counter attacks with damage equal to 10% of max health. That in itself is amazing. However, that 10% of max health damage that's being done on the counter attack is actually true damage. And as we know, true damage, at the very least, does not care about defense. It ignores defense and it just does a bunch of damage based on whatever statistic that it's being based on, which in this case is max health. And his max health is going to be huge because you're going to be building his entire gear, much like Rickard, for HP and defense. And what's really nice is if you run both these units, you're going to be building the same... Ooh, almost took my mic out. You're going to be running the same type of gear for both of them. And if you're only running one of these units, for certain different types of content, you could swap your gear back and forth because they're both going to use it, which is awesome. So his skill 1 allows him to have a 50% chance to taunt. Now this is huge because he wants to get hit. That way he can counterattack for 10% of his max HP as true damage. This allows him to just repeatedly keep brutalizing the enemies, especially if there's multiple targets and a lot of them want to do AoEs. And there's a lot of content in this game where enemies are doing constant AoEs, especially boss type content. He's going to sit there and make them pay for it. They're going to hit your whole team. He's going to trigger his counterattack true damage over and over and over. It is not restricted to only once per round either. He can do this multiple times in a single round. So again, a lot of this information is not there, so a lot of you are just overlooking Rogue because you probably don't even know this without testing him yourself. Skill 2, much like Rickard, big heals, except here's one difference. Yes, he does not have a cleanse, but his healing is only 2 turns. So if you're in a long-term fight, having that additional healing 1 turn less could kind of be a big factor here. Like, that's crazy. You can do 10 heals every 30 turns with Rickard, or you can do 10 every 20 with Rogue. That's kind of insane. So if you think about that from a logical standpoint, put that in a game scenario, depending on what the type the content is, that additional healing might come into play. You never know. But it's nice to know that it's only a 2-turn cooldown. Kind of nuts. Now his ultimate in no way is going to touch the ultimate numbers that Rickard will have, because Rickard is taking 80% of his entire max HP stacked on top, of course, with Hakron, that you could do. This gets even crazy if you're talking about trials, and you can use a lot of those artifacts that are giving you additional max HP. You can do some crazy things in there. But what's happening here, though, is his is a 5-turn cooldown instead of a 6. So again, kind of like his skill 2, it's a turn sooner, which could, of course, be a little bit of a benefit depending on what type of content you're doing. Now, this isn't to say that his ult won't hit hard. I've seen his ult hit as high as 8k true damage, which is another thing that's not being said here in the description. Sorry, we have like little mini rants here, but it's getting a bit ridiculous at this point. This attack deals bonus damage. That bonus damage is in fact true damage on this character. I'm sorry, based on this character's max health. Now, it doesn't say specifically how much it's being based on the max health, but I've seen it, as I've said, go as high as like 7-8k. And on like a 25-30k-ish Rogue HP, I think he's in it for like 6,700. So I guess you could do the math and kind of figure that out for yourselves if you'd really like to. It's somewhere around there. It's a rough number, but just throwing that out there. And again, it is 1 turn sooner. But yeah, it's not going to do the numbers that Rickard is doing, but it doesn't really matter because, again, his trait here is doing so much damage with counterattacks, and he has a skill built into his kit that allows him to kind of force that. You kind of can, you know, manage your damage output per se. You kind of can control the game a little bit because you can just keep taunting and get the damage done. Now, of course, it's only 50% chance. You want to put some focus on him to really get that to go off more so than not. But it's the fact that he does have a mechanic like that in his kit to allow him to benefit to do the additional damage. On top of the fact, every time you get hit with an AoE, he's going to trigger that. And all that damage is going to add up for, you know, during the time it takes to get that ultimate reset. And if you're Rickard, you don't have that luxury. Rickard is basically just sitting there as a big body tank, pretty much doing nothing until 6 turns are up and he's able to use his big ultimate. And that could, you know, kind of sway a little bit in Rogue's favor as being a better overall unit. And let me explain a little bit why. So, as we've already said, Rickard will do the bigger amount of damage on his ultimate. And that ultimate could, you know, who knows? That ultimate could actually do more damage combined with however many counterattacks Rogue gets, plus his ultimate in a 5-6 turn span. However, if you're fighting multiple targets, which is going to be in pretty much most of the game's content, Rogue is going to win that battle. Because Rogue is going to just sit there and keep chipping away at all of the enemies until they just kill themselves by hitting Rogue too many times, or just hitting a lot of AoEs and taking a lot of that nitpicking damage that allows your other units to go in and just kind of clean house. But he's going to be doing consistent damage always because of the way his kit is built, whereas Rickard is way more situational. So in my opinion, Rogue is going to be better overall. Even if Rickard can hit a bigger number every 6 turns, is he going to be truly out damaging Rogue consistently? Like, there could be a chance where for like 5 or 6 turns, Rogue just for whatever reason isn't getting a taunt off, or he's not getting hit. Who knows? Who knows what it is? And then Rickard, of course, is going to output more damage in that scenario because he's going to just hit a big ult every 6 turns and just take care of it. But there's going to be a lot of situations where Rogue is just going to completely out DPS Rickard because of the fact that he's going to be doing consistent and constant counterattack damage. And even if that counterattack damage is only like 2k, 3k, maybe even 4k, if you get some crazy amount of HP with your Rogue with some super good gear and Hackrin, of course, as well, that number is just going to stack up, and it's just going to hit multiple targets over and over and over again. And as we've said earlier when we talked about Rickard, his ultimate is total damage. So he's going to be better suited to just hitting one target more so than multiple, because multiple targets is going to really make that 80% become less and less and less depending on how many targets there is to hit. So I just feel personally that overall, with the way this game is designed and all the content we have to clear that has multiple targets, that Rogue is going to perform very well. On top of the fact, he is also going to be performing very well in boss fights too, because most of the bosses are hitting AoEs over and over and over again, and he's just going to keep triggering that counterattack over and over and over. And if he's doing counterattacks of 3 to 4k, let's just say 3k to play it safe, because 4k is kind of nuts, but 3k, let's say he's doing 3k 4 or 5 times plus his ultimate in five rounds basically, and then you got your Rickard doing 25 30k in 6, it's kind of close to, if not even tipping more in Rogge's favor. And of course, Rogge isn't stopping there either. He's also hitting the mobs, the waves, everything for that kind of consistent damage. And in my opinion, because of all that, all those factors involved, I'm going to go ahead and give the nod to Rogge here in today's video as being the better overall unit for your team, because they both have self-sustain, they both can do massive DPS. One relies on an ult, the other one can do it off of a trait. It's insane. Both these units are fantastic. Don't get it twisted. This video isn't out there to say who, what unit is garbage and what unit's, gold. No, both these units in today's video are fantastic. I love both of them. I love my Rickard. I love Rogge. I'm going to be using them constantly in a lot of different content. Matter of fact, I even recommend running them both together. They work so well. But at the end of the day, there has to be a winner. Who is overall the superior unit between the two, in my opinion? Your opinions may disagree with that, and you can let me know that in the comment section below why. But I'm going to go ahead and give the nod to Rogge. Yes, the Ninja Turtle, the elite, is a beast. We're going to go ahead and give him the win here. I can't believe how strong some of these elites are in this game when you really get to testing them and playing around with them and building them and putting them in certain teams. They can really carry their weight and do some crazy things. We already know about Charles. Now you all know about Rogge. So I'm going to catch you guys all in the next one. Don't forget to tick notifications, subscribe, join us in the Discord in the description below, and of course follow me on Twitter at XSPlays, and I will catch you all in the next one. Don't forget to give me some of your suggestions for future videos like this in the comment section below, and let me know what you think about the battle. Who do you think won it in your opinion? Again, my pick is Rogge, and I'll catch you guys all later. Peace.